Hey guys, James here today with another book review. Today we're talking about Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie. This is the sequel to The Blade itself, also by Joe Abercrombie, and is the second in the First Law trilogy. It's difficult to do books in series after the first one without doing loads of like spoilers and stuff. So just if you're going to watch most of this video just to have read it, I guess. This is really more of a discussion of my thoughts. I'll try and, like, the first bit of it is going to be spoiler free. I mean, really all you can do in terms of spoiler free stuff is just to sort of say how the book does, and in terms of being a sequel. It's common with a lot of series to put all of their eggs in the first book basket, right? It's something that happened with like Star Wars way back in the 70s. Like, the conventional wisdom is to make your first book relatively self-contained, so that if you do get a sequel, that's great and you can expand upon it, but if you don't, then it's not like a disappointing conclusion to the story, you know? I don't think that's what happened with this series, because obviously the first book is a lot of setup, a lot of setup for characters and events and stuff, and they all pay off beautifully, or at least start to pay off beautifully here in Before They Are Hanged. Now, the reason I mention this is because, as a side effect of the first book in the series often being quite contained, the second book tends to get a bit of what people call middle book syndrome. It's essentially where the second book becomes sort of bogged down in things, because I personally think because a lot of the time it's retreading ground that's covered in the first one, because if you go to the effort of setting up characters and stuff in the first book and then basically concluding their arcs, at least in some way, to keep the story contained, a lot of the time the middle book will be reintroducing the characters and giving them a new arc that's now set up to pay off in the third one, which is why I think a lot of people find that middle book syndrome to be like a thing where the middle book doesn't really go anywhere because it's all being saved for the finale, if you see what I mean. The good news here is that clearly Abercrombie planned this as a trilogy. The things that were set up in the first one do start to build and pay off, and we get more of an idea of what's happening. There's a great layer of mystery still just sort of subtly underneath the surface. You know, I said in the review of The Blade itself what the purpose of those characters were in that book was to set them up as these self-involved individuals that really are so bent on developing their own personality, their own lives and their own characters, and seeking their own goals, that they're blinded by the things that are going on around them. Essentially, they're blind to it. They don't see these things building up, and in this book basically they suffer the consequences of that, you know. We get to spend a lot of time with characters now being embroiled in these situations that they're sort of like a bit bewilderingly unprepared for, in a lot of ways, and just sort of doing their level best to make it through those situations. It's much more it's split up a lot more straightforwardly than the previous book, I think. With The Blade itself, a lot of the characters spend a lot of time in very small groups to be like apart from each other, and like, you know, we'd have a lot of times where characters were sort of dealing with things in pairs, like they'd pair off and have little things. In this book, it's very strictly three different narratives, like these three different theatres of the story. So you got the stuff that's happening in the north, you've got stuff happening in the south, and you've got stuff happening on this journey towards the edge of the world for unknown reasons. And this is where basically I need to start giving opinions and spoilers and stuff to really talk about what I loved about this book. But rest assured, I did love this book. It's a fantastic sequel to The Blade itself. It's a joy to be back with these characters. Like Abercrombie's character work is, it ranks above the top for all time. I mean, I'm still waiting to see how the trilogy pays off. So maybe it will take a left turn, but doubtful at this stage. I think his characters are fantastic. The writing style is amazing. Like if you like the first one at all, then you're going to love this one. If you're a little bit lukewarm on the first one, weren't sure about it, this one I think is going to have all of that sort of stuff that you were missing, because it does throw you into more story stuff than more character stuff. First one, very, very character focused. This one, still got a strong focus on characters, but with some plot in there too that you can now understand and see where it's going and you kind of make predictions for. It's good. I liked it. So now, without further ado, spoilers. So, let us talk first about Sandan Glockter, because, oh my god, what a son of a bitch. So, basically, Glockter's story in this book is the Siege of Dagoska. He's been given the task by Archlector Salt to just hold this city. He's not been told why it's really important to hold the city. It's like the last foothold of the Union in the south, basically, against the Gurkish Empire. So he's been given this task. and because he's Glockter, he's like, well, fuck it. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly. So he's, in doing this thing, he's holding the city, but he also has to investigate what happened to his predecessor. And this is where Glockter's, like, you know, his character really develops a lot in this book. I think we start seeing those sort of inbuilt things in him that would have made him a hero if his story and his upbringing and everything had gone differently for him. Like, he is somewhat merciful. He is intelligent. He is ruthless in a way that will benefit the end goal without being sadistic about it. And like that was superbly demonstrated in like all of his political machinations and the siege of Dagoska. Like, we can see what a smart character he is, and he contrasts greatly with Jazal, who probably goes through the most incredible arc in this book. I think I've seen another review that said, you know, all it took was Jazal getting punched in the face for me to start liking him. And I can see, like, what's happening. Like, I can totally get behind that. Because Jazal is a character who has now been stripped of his fucking arrogance. Like, all of his life, he was built up for this thing. And now he's been put through actual, real hardship with people that have experienced real actual hardship, and he don't like it. He doesn't like it, and now he realizes what a fucking arsehole he's been. And I mean, he kind of went through a similar transformation in this book that Glockter did in his backstory, where he's now been like, he's basically been battle tested and didn't like how it went. And now he's kind of fucked up a bit. Like, he gets this big fucking wound to his face. And he's just like, well, shit. Being a fighter's not for me. And I really like that character arc for him. I think probably the weakest character development in this was Logan. I mean, I still like Logan. I think he's probably one of the easier characters to actually like as a person, as I've explained in my discussion of the Blade itself. But he's kind of just treading water. Like, you know, we got much of the same character beats for him. It's like, oh, I want to be a penitent man. I don't want to do violence anymore. Violence is overrated. And then he just becomes the Bloody Nine again at the end, like towards the end of the book. And like, yeah, okay, like, there's 2 times in a row that's happened now, and I'm hoping that in the third book we're going to get some more payoff for Logan and maybe get some better development for him, because I think so far he's probably the most boring character in terms of growth. He's still a really interesting character, as pretty much every Abercrombie character is. But I think, he needed something a little bit different. He needs something to push him. I liked his interactions with Jazal, like his big brother mentality towards him. I think that was great. The camaraderie of of traveling on the road with people, I think was fantastic. Baez, something off about him. He's shady as fuck. Malachus Kai, I don't know what his deal is either. It's noted repeatedly over and over again. He's so different to how he was in the first book that characters start commenting on how different he is, and when that happens, you know that it's happened for a reason narratively. So I'm expecting something big to happen with Malachus Kai. Either he's going to turn on Baez, or maybe he's already turned on Baez and made a deal with Kalul, the prophet guy from the south, was one of the other magi. So I mean, it's entirely possible. We'll see where that goes. Pharaoh, again, pretty much like Logan. I think Pharaoh is probably the most underutilized character. I don't get her deal. She's essentially a plot device character. We need her to do something with the plot, but her character development's not really there. She gets some stuff with Logan where she starts developing a bit, but I don't think that's going to lead anywhere because he's going off back to the north now. Speaking of the north, Colin West. Oh my god. Colin West, man, he became... I think he's probably one of my favourite characters in this too, just because he's so beleaguered by the fucking idiocy of the born to rule noble class, all of their petty politicking and war, fighting amongst themselves during a wartime situation. Colin West is put in charge of babysitting the Crown Prince, and the Crown Prince is a fucking moron, gets everyone fucking killed, and then proves himself to be a filthy, dirty diddler and gets pushed off a cliff. So good. It's probably not good when someone like Black Dow says, I'm beginning to like you. It's probably not good for you personally, but I mean, I agree with Black Dow. I'm beginning to like Colin West quite a bit. And the Northmen in general, really liking them still. I think their interactions with the Southerners is really interesting. Just sort of how, even someone like Forley the Weakest would probably be shaking his fucking head. And these Southerners being oh man, these guys, they can't even walk. They can't even walk 10 miles a day in the fucking woods. What? Oh, Jesus. Even the worst Northman is better, basically, than these guys who are just pampered shits, lounging on their fucking chairs or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting stuff. The stuff with Bethod and the Feared and, Korib is Sorceress. All of that sort of coming now to fruition. We're seeing... these different plot elements in the north that didn't really seem to have much to do with anything, the Shankar and stuff. They're now sort of being brought into things. So I'm really excited to see how all of that sort of stuff pays off in the finale of this trilogy. And that's, I think, basically all of my thoughts on Before They're Hanged by Joe Abercrombie. So go check it out. You probably will. If you've read the first one and liked it, you probably will. If you read the first one and you thought it was shit, you probably won't. If you read the first one and you thought, maybe give this one a go and see how that changed your mind. For now, that's it. I'll be back next week to talk about Endgame by Daniel Cole, the final book in the Ragdoll trilogy, the Fawkes and Baxter trilogy. Until then, keep on keeping on. Bye.